Welcome to the HBCU Sports Nation, boys and girls. It's your HBCU OG, Mark Gray, and it gets no better than this. Counting down to the CIAA Tournament, you can't have a CIAA Tournament with memories other than my next guest. He is the incomparable Earl the Pearl Monroe, pride of CIAA, Winston-Salem State, and an NBA Hall of Famer and world champion. The man's game was so nice, you millennials, you can look it up, that some people actually referred to him as Black Jesus. That was crazy, but his game was too. Earl, thank you so much for joining us. I'm like a kid on Christmas who just opened up a great gift. It is wonderful to have you on the nation. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, and it's great to be on with you. I mean, anything going back to Baltimore is always very high on my list, and certainly this CIAA tournament coming up is number one.
And it's interesting to note that in the very building where your NBA brand, if you will, was sort of created, we're going back to sort of rebrand the CIAA tournament. So let's talk about your memories first of the CIAA tournament. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Bob Dandridge when he went into the Hall of Fame. When you played, if we were putting all the college basketball conferences on one plane, was the CIAA conference the best basketball conference in America?
Well, obviously, I'm going to be very prejudicial, about this. I think, when you think in terms of basketball, and you think in terms of especially Black basketball, it's kind of the Mecca. And when you think in terms of the fact that, Black players weren't able to play at a lot of the white colleges back in those days, that meant all the Black players were congregated, in the CIAA and SWAC and those type of conferences. And it was the best basketball that you could see.
How did shape or how was your game molded in that league? And can you talk about what it was like playing for big house games in that conference at that glorious time in its history?
Well, as far as we were concerned, it was the golden age of basketball. And of course, playing with Coach Gaines and Winston-Salem, was really just something that you couldn't really, explain. He was a figure who was bigger than life, actually a Morgan graduate.
Right.
So, he was a figure that people respected. Obviously, he was a big guy. That's why how he got his name, Big House. But, he was also big in stature as well as, in terms of his reputation around the country.
Earl the Pearl Monroe, our guest, as we continue here on the HBCU Sports Nation. Tournament time. We all know that it's a big carrot pointing towards the end of the season. Everybody in the conference looks to be peaking at the right time. As you look back on the years that you played in the CIAA tournament and the way that it has evolved, how have you seen it from your perspective grow?
Well, when I saw it and when I played in it, it was incredible. It was always packed, it's always, festive. And, it continued to be that way. I mean, more and more people started to, learn about the CIAA tournament. And a lot of times when people came, they weren't even a part of the CIAA, but they knew what it was like to see great basketball and have a festive time. And it seems as though those things, continued on throughout the years. As a matter of fact, I think the CIAA is one of the top drawing tournaments in the country, bar none.
So for it to come back to Baltimore, for you in particular, and correct me if I'm wrong, you played for the Bullets when it was known as the Baltimore Civic Center.
Right.
Wasn't there a championship won in that building?
No, I don't think so. We tried, but no, we didn't win a championship there. We did win in the Eastern Division championship, and then we lost in the NBA championship to Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, Bob Daniels was on that team.
Okay. So that was a heck of a team, because you had to go up, I guess, against Bob Dandridge, Hall of Famer, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hall of Famer. So there was Oscar Robertson was a Hall of Famer. Can you take me through the nuances of that series? How tough of a challenge was that for you guys?
Well, obviously, it was a real tough challenge because we lost 4-0. But I can remember having Kareem over at my house the night before they clinched it. And he was telling us about how he was going to go back to New York, and after they finished, the next day, and he was going to change his name. And it just so happened, I said to him, "Hey, you think y'all going to, just wipe us out tomorrow? We're going to bust y'all behind." Well, obviously that didn't happen. They did win 4-0, but it was a tough team to play against. And plus our guys were hurt. We had Gus Johnson, who was hurt during that time. Kevin Lockery was hurt. Myself, I was also hurt. But still in all, you can't take anything away from what Milwaukee was and the type of team they were. And of course, Bobby Dandridge played very, very well during that series.
You just mentioned so many names that made me appreciate my OG status. I remember Kevin Lockery both as a player and a coach. I remember Gus Johnson as an announcer and a player as well. I mean, those were wonderful times. When you look at the game today, certainly at the NBA level, how do you see it? Has it gotten better? Has it stayed the same, relatively speaking? Or, quite frankly, is it soft?
No, I think that, the game has progressed, along with everything else. Obviously the players are a lot different. They play a lot differently. The three-pointer now is a staple of the game. Back in those days, it was the big man, down up underneath. And so it has changed, but it's changed just like society has changed. Society wants this type of game, and I think that they're proving that it's the type of game that's going to be that's worldwide. Obviously, with the acceptance of the game throughout the world, and more foreign players coming into the NBA to play. So it's it's taken its course. Like everything else in this country, it's moved ahead, and I think as far as basketball players and basketball fans are concerned, they're pretty happy about it.
Earl, the Pearl Monroe, who is CIAA for life, as we continue here on the HBCU Sports Nation, and we're going back to Baltimore now. We're going to almost be walking in the footsteps, if you will, of greatness when this tournament tips off. They like to talk about the CIAA vibe, the image, the presence of the event that really makes it something more than just about basketball. When you hear that term CIAA vibe, given how long you've been associated with the conference, what does that phrase mean to you?
Well, that means that people that come out to see these games and participate in all the festivities are going to have a great time. To me as a player, it was party time. When I was playing in the CIAA and coming to Baltimore. Obviously, I had a great time in Baltimore when I was there. And just bringing that same vibe to Baltimore, it can't do anything but enhance, what the CIAA is, and enhance, the locals there in Baltimore to really appreciate, these players and what they do. Interestingly enough, Morgan was a part of the CIAA, so we always came through Baltimore to play it. When I was with Winston-Salem. So, it's kind of like reviving. I look back and I think about my old fellowship, the Groove Phi Groove Social Fellowship. That was started there in Baltimore. So, it's a great vibe. And I'm quite sure that the people who come out and watch the players and come out and enjoy the festivities are going to really enjoy themselves.
So we got breaking news. I don't think the world ever knew you were a Groove.
Don't tell the grooves that.
You know, people who aren't from the area don't understand that, despite the fact that everybody thinks this is Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens town, at its core, it's really a basketball city. You had the opportunity to play in New York, which is also at its core, you know, through Rucker and all of that, a basketball town as well. Talk about Baltimore as a basketball city, because the legacy is often dwarfed by players from New York, players from Philadelphia. But Baltimore's place historically in the game is really, to me, second to none.
Well, Baltimore's had a lot of great players that came out and came through there. And even back in the day, you know, there were a lot of great players. You know, you had the University of Maryland, you know, players playing out of there as well. So, you know, yeah, Baltimore, you know, just like the New York and Philadelphia, which is where I'm from, a lot of playground legends and things of that nature. And it's been on the map. I mean, you know, when people think about going and making a reputation as a let's say high schooler or so, you know, they would go through Baltimore to play. They go through Washington to play. You know, they go through Philadelphia. They go to New York. You know, and these are the meccas of basketball, and I don't see, you know, a lot of that changing. The instance that, you know, now that Black players are able to play everywhere, you know, kind of dwindles what happens in terms of what your city looks like in terms of the impact of basketball. But at the same time, at the core of it all, basketball is very large.
How much of the, for lack of a better term, brain or barnstorming did you do, I should say, during the off season? I talked with Bobby about that, Bobby D, and we were talking about how he sort of knew that he could play at the NBA level by the way he handled himself going into these various big markets and balling against players who were older than him, bigger than him. And once he passed that test, if you will, he knew he could step his game up to the next level, whatever level he was on. Did you feel that way when you were doing, or did you do that type of barnstorming, if you will, during the off season? And did that give you confidence and let you know, I'm a little bit better than this?
Well, you know, I think playing in the CIAA kind of solidified my view in terms of what I could do. You know, back in those days, there weren't that many basketball teams, professional basketball teams. And being able to, you know, play against those guys in the summertime, because in Philadelphia, most of those guys came to Philadelphia to play. And being able to play against those guys really solidified my thoughts in terms of being able to play at the next level. I shouldn't say this, but also the fact that I'm averaging 42 points a game didn't hurt because I'm playing in the next level either.
And again, frame it in the context of 42 points a game in what could have been considered as the best conference in America. I'm sure that did give you a lot of confidence. I know that you have a very special place in your heart for Baltimore. You and Dandridge are going to be part of a basketball clinic during the course of the CIAA tournament. A lot of the kids that you're going to work with only know of you through possibly Google. How do you bridge that gap in terms of, you know, not only them teaching the basketball skills, but we know a component of what you're going to be doing is about trying to leave pellets that will help them for the rest of their lives as people away from the basketball court. Talk about the clinic and what you hope to accomplish with that platform.
Yeah, you know, the clinic will be held at the UA House in Baltimore on February 19th from 8 to 3 p.m. And it's going to host about 200 high school and middle schoolers. And I think that from there, we also have a batch of the Baltimore coaches who will come in and they'll feature training and skills competitions and things of that nature. There'll also be like a CIAA and NCAA information sessions that these kids can ask questions and get information about. And as well, with Bobby and myself, we're going to do a Q&A so that we're able to answer questions that kids might, have in their mind, because, even though the times are different, times are still the same. And the questions that we had back when we were coming up are still some of the same questions of the day. And Bobby and I could kind of bridge that gap between yesterday and today in terms of those questions and answers for these kids, so that they can, in turn, plot a course for themselves later on, whether it be in basketball, whether it be in any other kind of profession, but at least having someone else to be able to say that, this is probably the direction you should go in. And if in fact you do go in it, this is what you should do. So hopefully we'll be able to answer those questions and give them some type of direction in terms of where they're going to be going.
You played in an era that sports figures were really prominent in social justice issues. And I was listening to your last answer, and I'm thinking the same questions that you all had, this generation has. From that perspective, are we stagnant? Have we taken a step back as a society, of course? Or, do we look at progress? How do you see it as basically a G that's older than me?
Well, obviously I've seen it both, throughout all these years, and I've seen how things have changed. And I've also seen how things haven't changed. And the interesting thing about this time is that we're looking basically at a America at this point that's kind of moving backwards in terms of how they deal with people of color. And I think that it's important that, kids understand, who they are and what they are, where they come from, and how to deal with this situation as it unfolds on an everyday basis out here. I mean, we're fortunately, there are people out here that have made it and, can give you advice. But the main thing is for you to understand where you are so that you can kind of understand where you need to be in the whole scope of things. It's interesting as we talk about this because, we just opened up a school in the Bronx called the Earl Monroe New Renaissance Basketball School, which is about the game of basketball, but not about playing the game of basketball. It's about all the other ancillary things that happen in the game of basketball, from your people in the front office to your photographers to reporters to people on the radio, so forth and so on. And these are the things that we're trying to expose these kids with so that they can plot a course for their own future in terms of what they might want to do, whether it be in sports or out of sports.
We're going to take a break and come right back with more of what you came here for with the incomparable Earl Monroe here as the HBCU Sports Nation continues. Don't you dare go anywhere.